good morning and welcome to the class. Thank you for attending. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so this week is very Irish, of course, and today I have worn my Irish jersey because tomorrow is the National Day for Ireland and a big celebration. So, of course, less celebration on the street and everybody is at home, so there will be more celebrations online. And normally it's a very, very big day. People come from all over the world, and of course last year was cancelled and this year is the same. It will be cancelled again, so very different celebration, but it's a good opportunity to wear some green and to support Ireland. So welcome to the class again. I hope we have no problem with the connection. I hope the technology and everything is okay with Zoom, with Facebook and with the Wi-Fi. The idea is to have a free English class in the morning, and the idea started during the pandemic, and it's a very good opportunity to learn English for you for free, and for me it's a good opportunity to return to work. So finally I have a little space to continue hopefully working from here. I had to stop in May. It was very difficult to continue working in May because of space, and we have a lot of people at home. So finally now it's a good opportunity, and hopefully we can continue in this way. I hope we've no big disruption or interruption because we have a dog in the garden. At the moment the weather is very good, so he is enjoying the weather, but it is possible during the class there might be a disruption with the dog, but that's normal and hopefully no problem. On the left we have the social media. So on Instagram I have the account @miglioreinglés, and every morning I post some pictures in relation to Dublin, and recently last week I have posted some pictures from the streets or from the city of Dublin, and maybe that's interesting for you. Also some clips from the classes and some quotations or some text in the evening. So there's 3 posts per day, and that's on Instagram on the left, @miglioreinglés. On Twitter we have @miglioro1, which is similar content as the Facebook page, and very, very similar. And finally the YouTube channel. Most people have YouTube, and some people prefer to use YouTube compared to Facebook. Okay. At the moment I am using Zoom, so you are welcome to participate and you are welcome to join the Zoom meeting if you prefer. The ID is at the bottom left, and the code for the Zoom meeting if you prefer to have the class in Zoom. Also, it's an opportunity to participate speaking. If you have a question or if you want to interact, that's possible also. So I hope that you have a good morning, and the idea for the class is very similar from other classes. So here you can see we will do the introduction first, and today we will focus more on the introduction compared to yesterday, because the last 2 or 3 days we did a very little introduction, but today I want to focus a little more on the introduction. So that is first. After the introduction we have an article in relation to St. Patrick's Day. So here you can see the article, and there will be vocabulary in relation to St. Patrick's Day and some grammar also. So first is the grammar introduction. After the introduction we will do analysis of a real text to try to identify the key parts of the article. And finally we have a list of phrasal verbs and a list of idioms that are very important, and every day I try to do a little by little explanation of the idioms and the phrasal verbs. Okay, and again, speaking practice is possible. You are welcome to join the Zoom meeting, and during the class you can ask questions, or hopefully at the end we may have the time to practice speaking. Yesterday we did not stay long after the Facebook class, but sometimes, depending on the time, because sometimes I want to run and I want to go and enjoy the city, that's possible. Okay, so that's the plan for today. Remember also In the afternoon today we have a specific football webinar. So it's an extra class at 4 o'clock in Dublin, and this is another reason for the football jersey, because every day there is a specific webinar extra in relation to English. Yesterday we did a grammar webinar at 4 o'clock. Today it's a specific sport and football vocabulary webinar. But it's very, very good in general for people to learn English. There's a lot of vocabulary, a lot of phrases, and possibly an opportunity to practice some speaking. So every webinar is useful and every webinar is important, and it's possible for everybody to participate and to learn from each webinar. On Wednesday we have the IELTS webinar, and on Thursday we have the advanced exam webinar. On Friday we have the business English webinar, and on Saturday at 1 o'clock in Ireland we have the B2 first certificate webinar. So every day we have extra webinars that are very, very good, and it's at 4 o'clock on Zoom. There's a small fee of €2.90 if you want to attend. Just contact me to register your place and I can give you the meeting details. Okay, so today is very Irish and very football. They're the two topics, or the two themes for today. And I see we have Matteo, I think, and Matteo, that's the Ireland jersey. Okay, and thank you again for connecting to Zoom. So hopefully during the class we can participate, and other people maybe can join if you want. There's the code on the bottom left. So now I will share my screen and we will begin with the grammar explanation, because every morning this is very, very important. And of course, if you are regular to the class, you are very, very familiar with this document, and still it's important every day to explain. And if you are new to the class, number one, I hope you can understand me clearly. I hope everything is understandable with me. There are subtitles and captions available on Facebook Facebook Live if you want to follow the captions, and if you want to follow the subtitles, they are possible on Facebook. The majority of the subtitles are correct, but there are some errors with the subtitles. So yesterday and the day before we did not look at this document, and I felt a little lost. I felt we were missing something. So it's important every day to remember the structure. So in my opinion, there are three areas very important, and particularly in my classes I focus on three particular areas. The first area is use of English. The second area are the tenses that we use in English. And the final area in yellow is just grammar topics and other grammar ideas. Okay, so they're the three very, very important areas in English. And this is the foundation document. This is the base of the language. So it's very important that you're familiar with all the structures in English first before you really progress in English. And I recommend that you probably be more familiar with your own language. So if you speak Portuguese, if you speak Spanish, it's good advice, seriously. It's really, really important that you try to understand your own language first. In my experience, I studied French in school, and when I studied French, that moment I learned more about English. So it's very, very good and easy for you to study Spanish if you are Spanish or speak Spanish. If you are from Portugal or Brazil, I recommend you study your Portuguese first to be more familiar with the structures, because there's a lot of similarities in every language. So if you understand one language, this will help you a lot to understand the concepts in other languages. And this document explains the concepts and the important ideas in English, which are similar in other languages as well. So the first section, use of English. In English we have different dialects or different accents and different vocabulary around the world. So in the United States, of course, it's enormous. United States is huge. There are approximately 300 million people in the United States. So the English is very, very varied. it's very different. The accents are very different. The velocity is very different. And the vocabulary is very different. So you have a different accent in New York compared to California, compared to Texas, compared to obviously a different country, Canada, which is north, Australia, very different, Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, very, very different accents. And this is an extremely difficult part to learn English. So for this reason, it's the top topic for me. And for me, in Ireland, I have possibly a strong accent with the U, the TH and the O. That's possibly very strong for me. And for example, U phonetically should be Dublin, butter, bus. But for me, sometimes it's Dublin, butter, bus. So just be very careful with the U. The TH is possible strong with me as well. In the book, phonetically, it should be this, that, these, those. But sometimes for me, and sometimes in Ireland, it's this, that, these and those. So that's very, very interesting. And sometimes the O is very strong for me. Now, how, and phonetically in the book maybe it's a little different. So that's a very, very important area, the different accents in English. The next section is very important for sure. So the next section is very particular to English, very unique structure to English, phrasal verbs. And the concept of the phrasal verb is the verb plus the preposition, and it's possible a literal, direct translation, a direct significance, but there is a possible double or completely different significance. And the phrasal verbs are very tricky, but really they're very, very important when you learn English. And I focus a lot on phrasal verbs during my class. And here we have another document at the bottom. You can see the PDF. So the PDF, we have a specific document for phrasal verbs, and during the class I try to show and teach a lot of phrasal verbs, because with family, with friends, we use phrasal verbs every moment, every situation, and they're really important. The same with idioms. So idioms are like expressions, and we use expressions all the time to make English funnier, to make it more entertaining, to make it more charming. So there's a lot of idioms and expressions that we use in English, and this is a very, very important area. So honestly, this area of use of English, I think, is maybe the most important area for you to really progress and to really understand fluent native speakers. It's an extremely important area, okay? And it's for this reason, it's at the top of the list for me. So obviously, finally, conversation is very important. So if you are practicing a language, it's important that you try to practice conversation. Of course, on the internet today, there are lots of possibilities to practice conversation. You can find lots of groups, you can find lots of people to do an exchange. So I recommend that you regularly try to practice pronunciation and try to practice conversation. It's a big part to practice English. And during the class, hopefully, sometimes it's possible for you to participate, to practice some speaking during the class, okay? And the same pronunciation in English, we have some irregular pronunciation and some difficult issues in relation to pronunciation, and that's a very big area. And during the class, I try to highlight and identify the important difficulties with pronunciation. So that's a big, big area. So again, that area is the most important area for me, use of English. The next area is more general, and I think the majority of people should be familiar with the tenses, okay, because it's very, very important. Majority of languages, you have different tenses. So basically in English, you need to be aware and sure if you speak in the present, do you speak in the past, do you speak in the future. Okay, that's the general idea, but we have more tenses and more times, and I just want to explain the most important. So the simple is one action you do in the present simple. I drink, I go, I eat. That's the present simple, one action. The past simple is one action you completed or that you did in the past. But the incredible problem with English is we have a lot of irregular verbs in the past simple, and this is an extremely challenging task it's an extremely challenging issue for you to master. We have a lot of irregular verbs in the past, and this is extremely difficult to remember, okay? Normally, the regular verb in the past is ed, so look in the present and looked in the past, walk in the present, walked in the past. So normally the past simple is ed, but we have a lot of irregular verbs. For example, eat, ate, go, went. Okay, so we have a lot. Also, the future simple is normally one action that you will do in the future, and the structure is typically will plus the verb. Will eat, will go, will have, will meet. The second possibility is going to have, going to eat, going to meet. So there's two possible structures in the future, and that's the concept of the simple. The next idea is the continuous. So we do one action continuously in the present. This is the present continuous. We do the period in the past with the activity continuously in the past, and the same concept with the future, the period of time that continuously has the activity. Okay, and the structure is the subject, the verb to be as the extra auxiliary verb, and the gerund of the verb. The gerund, you can see here, is the ing. So I will be eating, I will be going, I will be drinking is the future continuous. I am eating, I am going, I am speaking is the present continuous. And the past continuous, I was eating, I was drinking, I was speaking. So that's the concept of the continuous and the simple. The next idea is very common, of the perfect. So we have the present perfect and we have the past perfect, and it is possible the future perfect also. And basically the idea of the present perfect is one action in the past, it's completed and it's finished, but it is relevant and related to the present. Okay, so the structure is the subject, extra verb have, and the participle of the verb. So the continuous is the gerund, ing, eating, drinking, going, but the participle in the present perfect is related to the third column in school. You know, you go, went, gone. So the third column is the participle, and the present perfect, for example, I have eaten my dinner. It's finished, it's completed, but it is related to now because at the moment I am not hungry. Interestingly, the present perfect apparently is more common in British English compared to the United States, and apparently in the United States they do not use the present perfect so much. They use the past simple. That's just a curiosity. And then the past perfect is the period of time in the past, usually before another action in the past simple. Okay, so I had eaten my breakfast before my friend contacted me. That's the difference between the past perfect and the present perfect. There's another possibility in the future perfect. I will have eaten my dinner before my friend will contact me. So they are the most important concepts: the simple, the continuous, and the perfect. And they're very, very important that you are familiar with them. The next idea is the infinitive. So basically the infinitive is the foundation and the base of the verb, and normally in English it's to go, to eat, to have, to drink. This is the infinitive. And during the class I mention a lot the infinitive, so that's a very important concept. It's the base of the verb with to go, to eat, to drink. Conditionals are very heavy in the book. They're very complicated and they have a lot of rules in the book. When you study the conditionals, we have the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, mixed conditional. But in reality, in conversation, it's a little more flexible and it's a little less strict, in my opinion. Basically, it's depending on if. Okay, so if it rains today, I will not go to the city centre. So it depends on if and a different time, and there are some rules in theory that's very heavy. But for example, if I met my friend yesterday, I would have spoken about the football match. Okay, and then finally we have the idea of the active and the passive. So the active structure in English is usually the subject, the verb, and the object. That's called the active. I drink the milk. Okay, active. And then to create the passive, you change the position of the subject and the object. You also introduce an extra verb to be and the participle of the original verb. It's a little complicated, but that's the concept of the active and the passive. And I know In Spanish, you have the same idea. So one example, I drink the milk, the active, and then to create the passive, the milk is drunk by me. Okay, so that's important, and it's a little advanced and very impressive when you use it correctly, but also very common and important for you to identify with people that speak English. So they are the most important tenses in English. And then finally, the basic grammar concepts are so important, of course, and I hope the majority of you are familiar with the basic grammar ideas. But if you are not, it's very important you understand the noun. What exactly is a noun? A noun could be a person, a place, or a thing. For example, Brian, Dublin, classroom is a noun. Hand, head, shirt, jacket, noun. Every noun you need an article. Okay, so jacket, it's possible the jacket, or it's possible a jacket in general. So you have two possibilities for pronunciation, a jacket or a jacket. Okay, that's indefinite article, and the definite article is the jacket, the head, the table, the book. Okay, so that's important. We have one rule: when the noun begins with a vowel, and the vowels in English are a, e, I, o, u. So generally, when the noun begins with a vowel, it's necessary an. Okay, but it is possible the adjective. So if you have the position of the adjective before the noun, okay, so the function of the adjective is to describe the noun, and the position of the adjective is before the noun in English, and this is different in Spanish and it's different in Portuguese. In other languages I don't know, but in English the position of the adjective is before the noun. Jacket, the big jacket, the ugly jacket, the expensive jacket. So the position is important, and if the adjective is beginning with a vowel, also we can use an for the article. Okay, an expensive jacket, just one example. The idea of countable and uncountable nouns is very important. For example, the difference between how much and how many. So a lot of people confuse how much and how many, and the rule is countable and uncountable. So the noun, is it possible to count the noun jacket? One jacket, two jackets, three jackets, four jackets. Yes, jacket is countable. Water, is it possible to count water? One water? No, not really. We count one bottle, 1 litre, one glass. So water, chocolate, air, there is a group that are uncountable. And for uncountable, we typically say how much. How much water, how much air, how much chocolate, how much money, because it's not possible to count. This is confusing because money, we count €1, $1, £1, but actual money, it's not possible. So there's a little difference between countable and uncountable, and this is important, between how much and how many. Okay, generally a lot is flexible, and you can use a lot with uncountable and a lot with countable. A lot of money and a lot of pens. So a lot is more flexible if you have a doubt. So adjectives, the position of the adjective is before the noun, but also we have the concept of comparative and superlative. So this place is warm, so this room is warm, but this room is warmer than this room, but the other room is the warmest room. So the concept, when you compare and when you make the best and the worst, the vocabulary is very important, and the regular rule is ER for better, and then EST for the superlative. Okay, so big, bigger, the biggest. But we have a lot of irregular rules, so it depends if it's a syllable, one syllable. The general rule is ER. Okay, so big, one syllable, bigger, biggest. But if it has more than one syllable, we say more. For example, interesting, more interesting, most interesting. That area is important, and you will use this area a lot in English, so it is very important. Also, the concept of the adverb. So the function of the adverb is to describe the verb, and normally the adverb ends in ly, quickly, slowly, rapidly, happily. That's the adverb, and the function is to describe the verb. For example, drink, drink quickly. Talk, talk slowly. So the adverb is very important in English. Also the modal verbs. So we have a special category in English called modal verbs, and can is one modal verb. It's related to ability and permission. I can play the piano. I can run a marathon. I can jump very high. It's my ability, but also permission. I can enter the room. I can travel to Italy. I can travel to Dublin. It's permission and ability. Could, may and might are modal verbs for possibility and options, and they are very, very similar in the significance. I could travel to Ireland. I may travel to Ireland. I might travel to Ireland. All options and all possibilities to express an option and to express a possibility. The big rule, the most important rule with the modal verbs, the next verb is normally infinitive, to go, to eat, to drink, but the exception and the rule, it's necessary to eliminate two. So can, go, might, have is correct. Can, to go is incorrect. Can, to have is incorrect. So it's necessary to eliminate two after the modal verbs. The exception is maybe have to. Okay. Remember, shall is typical for the question. It's a little more formal. Shall we watch the football? Shall we go to the shop? It's a question. Will we go to the shop? Will we watch the football? It's a little more formal. Should is for advice and recommendation. So my advice to you, you should visit Ireland. You should speak to your friend. It's my recommendation and my advice. Ought to is difficult pronunciation. The G is silent and the significance is exactly the same. You ought to go to the football match. You ought to speak to your friend. You ought to watch this program. It's recommendation and advice. Must is obligation. You have no choice. Okay, you must collect the children. You must do the exercise. You must watch this television program. It's obligation. It's the same as have to. Okay, so I think the majority are probably familiar with all of these concepts. There's one or two final issues. For example, prepositions are little words, but they're very, very important. In English, we have prepositions. They're very small words, but they are key to understand the sentence. And if you do not understand the preposition, it's possible you lose the significance of the sentence. And we have maybe 150 prepositions in English. And again, in the PDF, there's a special list here in relation to prepositions. But basically, the preposition is related to movement, it's related to direction, and it's related to position. So speak, I speak, but direction, I speak to you. Okay, I look in general, I look, and then specific direction, I look at the television. So they're very important to focus the action with direction and also movement. I travel to Ireland. I travel to the shop. But also in relation to phrasal verbs. Remember, the phrasal verb is the verb plus the preposition. It's possible literal, but it's possible completely different significance. And usually the preposition is associated with emotion in relation to the phrasal verbs. For example, up is positive, creation and happy. Down is destruction, negative, depressing and sad. So you have to remember the emotional connection with the preposition in relation to phrasal verbs. This area is important and is typically confused. For example, the possessive adjective, my chocolate cake, your chocolate cake, his chocolate cake, her chocolate cake, possession. But the chocolate cake is mine, the chocolate cake is yours, the chocolate cake is his, the chocolate cake is ours. So that's very, very important, especially the difference between his, her, his, hers, or the final possibility is the object pronoun. You give the chocolate cake to me, give the chocolate cake to him, give the chocolate cake to her. Particularly with him and her is the most confused. So you need to be very, very clear with that explanation. Also, the demonstratives is a technical name. Basically, the difference between this, that, these and those is extremely important. It's before the noun and it represents singular and position. This chocolate cake here, singular. That chocolate cake in a different position, away. These chocolate cakes, plural here, and those chocolate cakes, plural in a different position. So it's very important and very simple. but very frequent and very common. The other big difference is between another, other, the other, and the others. Very simple, and the error is very typical, so you need to be very careful. Another is basically before the noun in the singular. Another day, another week, another year, singular, singular, singular. And other is typically before the noun in the plural. Other days, other weeks, other years. That's a big, big difference. It's very obvious when you make the mistake. So just to be careful and to be very sure, it's possible that other, when you have a choice of two things, do you select this coffee or do you want the other coffee? Okay, very, very important. So when you have a selection of two things, you don't want this one, you want the other one. And then finally with the S, when you have the group of people, do you want to go to the party with us or do you want to go to the party with the others? So it's very, very different in the context, but very important as well. Questions, how to make the question is very big area, and during the grammar webinar on Mondays at 4 o'clock, one day we will look specifically at the question structure, how to make the question. Suffixes and prefixes are very important in relation to learning English, so you need to be familiar with the suffix in English because it identifies the form of the word. Is it a verb, adjective, noun, adverb? And normally ANCE is a noun, the importance, IZE is for verb, ABLE is for adjective, LY is for adverb, etc. So this area is very important and really useful when you are mastering and really progressing in English. It's so, so important. And that's the most important introduction for today, okay? So writing, of course, is an important skill. You need to practice your writing, your speaking, your listening, your reading, and then extra grammar to study. So there's 5 areas that are very important for you to continue practicing all the time. Reading, you need to read a lot of material. You need to read a lot of newspapers, magazines, books every day. Read, read, read. Write, you should try to practice writing frequently because it's another big area of English. Speaking, the same. You should try to practice speaking regularly. And listening is exactly the same idea. You need to practice a lot with the listening because it's very difficult. And then finally grammar. You need to really study grammar and to understand it very, very well. Okay. And then also exam preparation is very important. We have Cambridge exams, the first certificate and the advanced, the B2, the C1 and the C2, and they're very popular exams. And during the week I have created specific webinars in relation to the exams also. Okay, so that's sufficient for today for the introduction. Now I want to show you the article in relation to real English. Now we have the English in reality. So this is a very normal article, a very fluent article, and the level is very advanced and very high, but you can see here a lot of important grammar issues and grammar ideas from the introduction. Okay, so first I will read the text to practice pronunciation, and after we will analyze the vocabulary and analyze the grammar. Okay, so I'll just check the chat as well that we have everything, and I'll just keep the chat active because sometimes it disappears. Okay, so the text, the title is The Coronavirus, of course, St. Patrick's Day Celebrations Move Online. Okay, so here's a picture and it's from Belfast in 2019, so 2 years ago. And this is a typical scene, a typical image from the streets in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. Normally there is a parade and people dress in green and they have the celebration. So the first paragraph is St. Patrick's Day celebrations will once again be different this year. Okay, and I'll just move this. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, traditional parades in Belfast and Dublin have been cancelled for the 2nd year in a row. Okay, with many events across the island again moving online. However, in the United States, some long-standing traditions will persist, such as the Chicago River being dyed green to celebrate Ireland's patron saint, although large gatherings have been ruled out in many parts of the world. Attempts have been made to mark 17 March in true Irish style. So that's 2 or 3 paragraphs, and in the title, no problem, to move online. I think that's very clear. So the verb is to move, but we have another verb which is a synonym to shift, and I think yesterday we saw the explanation to shift, and the significance is to move as well. So you can shift the meeting to 10 o'clock, you can move the meeting to 10 o'clock, so it's very, very similar. And from the first paragraph is very important here. The most important topic here is due to. Okay, this is a very, very important word in English. So the first example is due. The bus is due in 10 minutes, and the pronunciation is possible due or do. Okay, so probably do is very typical, and the significance means expected. So the bus is due in 10 minutes has the significance you expect the bus to arrive in 10 minutes. Very important. And also in terms of pregnancy, when the woman is pregnant, you can say the baby is due in January. So that's very important as well. And the significance is that the baby is expected to be delivered in this month. Okay, so due is very important. It's very typical as well, overdue. So if you are waiting and waiting and waiting a long time, and over has the significance of excess, so the baby is overdue, means that it has not been delivered on time. It's also possible a holiday. So you are expecting a holiday, but you have not taken the holiday because of the pandemic. So now you are overdue the holiday. Okay, that's very typical in conversation and very, very important as well. So overdue is also in relation to payment and bills for electricity. If you have to pay your bill and you have not paid on time, the bill is overdue. Okay, but here it's due to, and the significance is because of. In Spanish it's debido a. Okay, and for example, the party is cancelled due to the problem, the event is cancelled due to the situation, because of. So the significance of due to has the significance because of, and it's very, very frequent and very common in English. So you can see it's very simple and very small, but it really has a big significance in the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so very, very important. A parade, I think in Spanish, is like cabalgata. Okay, so the parade is like a procession, and here it's a difficult tense, have been cancelled. So I think this is the example of the passive, but it's also the present perfect. So that's a little advanced structure. The verb is to cancel. It's regular with ed, but also an extra l. So possibly you can consider this a little irregular, because the verb is to cancel with one l, and the past simple is cancelled. Okay, so you can see there's a little difference. There's an extra l in the past simple. This expression is very, very important. So for the second year in a row. Okay, so row is typical in the cinema. You go to the cinema and you have the front row, second row, third row. Okay, in the cinema, or the back row is typically where the people who cause the trouble are in the back row. Okay, so row is like the line, but we have an expression in a row, and the significance is consecutively. Okay, so you are feeling very good for 3 days in a row, so 3 days consecutively, and here it's cancelled for the second year consecutively in a row. Very, very frequent expression, very common, and maybe a little difficult for you to catch, but so important. But be careful, because we have two words that are similar in the spelling, exactly the same, but the significance is completely different. In relation to sport, the verb is to row. I think in Espanol, remar. So you row, and you know the song in the school, row, row, row your boat. So row is the action and the activity for the sport. And the second example is to row. So the pronunciation is completely different, and the significance is to have an argument, to have a discussion, or to have a fight. Okay, so if you row with your friend, the significance is you have a fight, you have an argument. Okay, so to have a row has a different meaning completely, but here it's very common and very important. Second year in a row means consecutively. Okay, preposition across the island, and also here the pronunciation is very important. So the S is silent, so we just say island. So the pronunciation is important because the S is silent and the preposition is across the island. It's possible to say across the world, and the significance is every part of the world or all around the world. So there's two synonyms: all around the island, all around the world, or across the world or across the island. Okay. However, that's a very important linker, and in English we have a lot of linkers that are so important to make English more cohesive and more fluent. However, although, moreover, furthermore, in conclusion, in addition, we have a long list of typical linkers and typical connectors, and they're very, very important. Here we have an adjective. Okay, so the noun is traditions in the plural. Okay, customs, habits, traditions, synonyms. Okay, customs, habits, traditions. But here we have the adjective. So if something is long standing, it means it has continued for a long time. So a long standing tradition means it started not last year, it started maybe 100 years ago, and it's still standing continuously. Okay, it's the same with an agreement or a contract. If you have an agreement or a contract that started a long time ago, it's a long-standing agreement, a long-standing contract. So very, very good adjective. And remember, it's possible with the hyphen. You can connect two completely different words with the hyphen to make and create one word. Okay, will persist, will continue, such as. So when you give examples, it's typical to say such as and like. Okay, so I have a lot of hobbies, such as swimming, running, eating. So they are my hobbies. So such as and like are exactly the same, typical for a list of examples. Here we have the verb to dye. So the river being dyed green. So the verb to dye is very important. Of course, there are two completely different significances. The first one is completely different in the spelling, como morir. So when the person is very old, eventually we all die. Okay. Also, death is the noun and the adjective is dead. So you need to be very, very clear with this family because it's a little tricky. The verb is to die, death is the noun, and dead is the adjective. But the second verb is completely different in the significance. It's related to hair, and it's related to typical the hair. If I dye my hair, I change the colour of my hair. The clothes, it's possible to dye the clothes green to change the colour of green. Okay, and here in Chicago, it's typical on St. Patrick's Day, they change the colour of the water because they add extra content to change and to turn the river green. So dye is very important, and it's typical to dye your hair. Okay, I see we have a question here, and yeah, if I use to row related to the sport and to row in an article, exactly. So the pronunciations are totally different. Exactly. So this is a good example of English being a little difficult. So the sport is to row. The same with the cinema, front row, second row. So you row, and probably the significance is connected because the sport, you go in the line. So the verb is to row, but the fight or the argument is to row. So very, very different pronunciation, same spelling, and the significance is completely different. So very, very good question. And again, so the verb is to dye your hair, to change the colour of your hair. In relation to the first verb to dye, you can say in the present continuous, I am dying for a holiday. And that means you really, really are looking forward. You cannot wait for a holiday. You're dying for a holiday. So you can see the difficulty sometimes in English with the significance. So this is from the first verb to die, morir. And it means that you're waiting and you really want a holiday. You're dying for a chocolate cake. You're dying for a break. It means you really, really want. Okay. But in this situation, it's the river changing colour, and the patron saint is just a pronunciation. Again, although is like contrast. So I am very happy, although I could have more food. Okay, so it's a contrast, although it's a linker. Here, this word is very important, gatherings, and also the phrasal verb ruled out. So first, here it's the noun, and it's in the plural. Okay, so large is the adjective, and this is the noun in the plural, gatherings. But the verb to gather is very common in English and very important. The significance is to collect. Okay, so I am in my room and I plan to leave my room, but before I leave I need to gather my things, gather my phone, gather my book, gather my keys. It's to collect. Okay, it's possible if you are thinking, you need time to think, so you need to gather, you need to gather your thoughts, and the significance is you need to collect your thoughts and you need time to think. Okay, so it's very, very good verb in English, very frequent. To gather your thoughts is to contemplate, okay, or to think of everything. You need time to think, and it's very typical for people. So to gather your friends means to everybody to collect and come together. Okay, so I have a party on Saturday and I would like to gather all my friends together. So it's like to bring my friends together, and this is the significance of a gathering. So a gathering is a very common noun in English in relation to a party or a meeting. So it's very typical, a family gathering, which has the significance a family meeting or a family party. Okay, so it's a very, very advanced word, very common in English and very important. The pronunciation is gatherings, and for me it could be little strong, like gathering, like a D, and that's just one example of the pronunciation in Ireland. Again, ruled out is very, very good phrasal verb, a bit difficult to understand, but to rule out is to cancel. And maybe it's from school. In school we have the object, the ruler. So the ruler is the object in school. When you have the pencil and the pen, and the ruler is the object to draw the straight line. So to rule out is a second possibility in relation to decisions. So if you are the leader, if you're the politician, you have to rule. So the verb is to make the decision. And if you rule out, the significance is you cancel or you postpone or you change the meeting. Okay, so for example, the politician with the restrictions at the moment has ruled out new additions, new changes. So he has said no. Okay, so here they have been ruled out, and this is an example of the passive, because the leader ruled out the gatherings, but the position is different because here we have the gatherings at the beginning. So that's an example, difficult but perfect example of the active and the passive. So the gatherings, the meetings have been banned or prohibited. Okay, so it's probably a synonym to prohibit and to ban. Very, very typical and very, very common in English, extremely common to rule out. Typical in sport, when the football player is injured and it's not possible to play, he has been ruled out, or he is ruled out, so it's not possible to play. Okay, here we have an attempt. So really, really good vocabulary, very, very important. The verb is to attempt, and the significance is to try. So you have the exercise, so you want to attempt the exercise, you want to try the exercise, and everybody, the majority of people understand to try, but a little more advanced English is to attempt, and the noun is an attempt. Okay, and this is an example of the noun beginning with a vowel, and because it begins with the vowel we need an. Okay, so very simple but very important, and very, very good. But here it's also the plural, attempts, and the pronunciation is a little bit difficult, and it's typical the verb to make an attempt, which is the same as make an effort. So your friend has the party, it's very difficult for you to attend because you have a lot of plans, but you will make an attempt and you will make an effort to go to the party. Okay, so to make an attempt is very, very important. And then true Irish style is good as well. Okay, so that's just a little explanation of vocabulary from an article, very interesting, and I will put the link for the article in the Facebook page below the video, and you can follow later if you want. But for me, that's just 4 paragraphs that are very important in relation to vocabulary and grammar topics. And now I want to move to idioms. Okay, so this week we looked a little at phrasal verbs, but now I want to continue with the list of idioms. But remember, in the middle, so here we have another list of prepositions, and this is just a typical list on the internet from prepositions, and I recommend for you to study that you are familiar with a typical list of prepositions. It's possible you have a lot of resources and a lot of material online, so this is just one typical page. But today I want to look at the idioms, because we stopped with the expression last week to not let, and let is like permit, so not let grass to grow under your feet has the significance it's better for you to continue moving, to continue working, to be very active, because if you stay in the same position, grass will grow on under your feet, and you'll be lazy. And it's just an old expression to say continue to be active and continue moving. Moss is a very similar concept, because moss is typical on the wall, and I get the translation here for you for moss, and I'm going to show you here. You can see in other languages moss, in Bulgarian, Dutch, so it's probably very similar in other languages, and Italian, but I'll just check Spanish and Portuguese, so it's the same, musgo. Okay, so that's an expression, not letting moss grow over. So it's an instruction to maintain the tree, to maintain the object, to continue working, and that's very important. The next expression is very, very typical, a little difficult to explain. This word in particular, a deck, is related to cards. Okay, so when you play with cards, you have like the ace, the cards, the ace, the king, the queen, the playing cards. This is called the deck of cards. Okay, it's the bunch or the group of cards. It's a deck of cards. But also on the boat, the deck of the boat is the top part of the boat. So everybody is working on the deck. So the deck is a synonym for the floor. Okay, so we have an expression to hit the deck, is an expression, and it means to go on the floor. Okay, so for example, when they rob the bank, the criminal enters the room and he tells everybody, hit the deck, and the significance is to go on the floor. So if you're ever in a bank robbery and you hear this expression in English, you know exactly what to do. Okay, to hit the deck. The double decker, so it's possible with a bus as well. Remember, the original significance is the boat. The deck of the boat is the floor of the boat where the people work. And in relation to the bus, we have double deck bus. Okay, and the significance is floor. In the building we say floor, first floor, second floor, but for the bus we say the bottom deck and the top deck. The same with the boat. If you are on the boat, you're on the top deck and the bottom deck. So very, very important vocabulary. And normally we say a double decker bus. There is another expression in relation to the boat, which is a metaphor. We say all hands. So you need all hands on deck. That means you need every person to come to the top of the boat to start working. Okay, and it's a metaphor in the family, with work, in professional situations. You need all hands on deck. You need everybody to help. Okay, and that's very, very typical expression in English, really, really common. All hands on deck is the significance that you need everybody to work. This expression is related to the cards, and if you're not, so of course you need a full deck to play the game. You need every card. You need 52 cards to play the game. If you do not have all the cards, it cannot function properly, or it cannot work. So the very insult, or the very typical insult and a little strong, is to say the person is not playing with the full deck, has the significance they're a little bit idiotic, they're a little bit stupid, they're maybe lacking intelligence as well. So be careful, because it's possibly a very strong insult. Of course we have a lot of expressions in relation to this, not playing with the full deck. we say a few screws loose. Okay, so a screw is typical when you're constructing and you're building. You have the screw, and it's typical in the machine. And the word loose is typical for the shirt. So the opposite, the shirt is very tight, but the shirt is loose. Okay, so if you have a few screws loose in the machine, it's not functioning perfect, and that's another synonym to say somebody is a little idiotic or a little stupid as well. So it's possibly an insult, so be careful. And again, there's probably a lot of expressions in relation to that area and in relation to that context. Okay, now and then is very typical as well, and it means occasionally. So you like to go to the restaurant now and then. So now and then means occasionally. It's possible now or again. It is possible as well every so often, and that means you like to go occasionally. Okay, so you like to visit the cinema every so often, has the significance occasionally, and it's possible every now and then as well. Okay, and probably there could be another one, but that's just 3 typical expressions to represent occasionally. And then here we have another one, now or never. So it's the opportunity. Maybe you only have this opportunity, and maybe you never have this opportunity again. So it's now or never. And we have some vulgar expressions in relation to that as well that I think, but I won't say. And here's the example. Well, now or never. So they say something that should be done now, or it will never be done. Okay, so it's now or never. This is your opportunity. Your one and only chance, one and only opportunity, now or never. And we also say take it or leave it. That's a very typical expression as well, to take it or leave it. Okay, I'm just going to type that a bit better. To take it or leave it has the significance in a deal or a negotiation. This is the offer. You take it or you leave it. So that's very, very typical as well. Okay, the next one's very, very good, very simple, but very common. So colour. For example, if the person is healthy, if the person feels good, the colour, natural colour, is maybe a little red or a little, depending on the temperature. But if you are off colour, the significance, you have a different colour, so you're not feeling the same, you're feeling a little bit bad. So if you feel a little ill or a little sick, it's very possible in conversation to say you feel a little off colour, so you don't feel good, you don't feel 100%. Very common in conversation, and a little simple, but very, very important. Okay, remember on and off. So in relation to accuracy and precision, this is the accuracy, but if you are off, it means inaccurate or not precise. So very important significance and explanation and expression. So to be off colour has the significance you feel a little sick or a little unwell. It's also possible under the weather, which is very typical. To be under the weather or to feel under the weather has the significance to not feel perfect. Okay, so you feel a little under the weather is a little off colour and not 100%. The next one is very, very famous in conversation, very informal. A rocker is possible a chair, I think. So we have a rocking chair. So the typical chair, you know, the type of chair that moves back and forward, this is a rocking chair. But the expression to be off your rocker is to be really, really crazy and to be really unpredictable and mad or crazy, okay, or eccentric. So this person is off their rocker. They're very strange, they're very unpredictable, they're very irrational. It's a very typical expression, to be off your rocker, to be off my rocker. So one could be me, could be my rocker, your rocker, his rocker, and it means crazy. Very common in fluent conversation and with native speakers. A little difficult to understand, and I think the rocker is related to the chair. Okay, so everything is normal, you're in the chair, you're relaxing. But if you are off your rocker, you're probably angry, you're crazy, and maybe originally it's related to an old person who should not be moving from the chair. So if you're off your rocker, you're crazy, you're doing something ridiculous. Okay, here, okay, a start and off to a flying start, so it's very literal. And basically you have a good start in your company, you start the new job, you start the new school, and you have a good start or a bad start. So it's an adjective to have a flying start. Obviously it's fantastic, it's incredible, really, really good. And here they say off to a good start, because you start at 0 and you go off. So off has the significance to start. For example, in the morning for work, you set off at 8 o'clock has the significance you start your journey at 8 o'clock. So to set off has the significance to start your journey or to start your trip. And here they say off to a good start, because the start is this position and off is the beginning or the start. Also in relation to start and other adjectives, we have a head start, and this is a famous expression. A head start means that you have a little advantage. Okay, so typical in a race, you have two people, and if one person has an advantage with the head, they have a head start. So it's a metaphor for a little advantage that you have, maybe in business, maybe in a competition. It does not matter, every context it's possible a head start. It's also possible, very common, a false start. So if you have a false start, it's typical in athletics. So you have to wait for the whistle, you have to wait for the sound, and when you hear the sound or the pistol, you go. But if you go before the sound or you go before the whistle, that's a false start. It's very common as a metaphor in relationships, in work, in professional situations. A false start is like cancel, you have to change, it's illegal, and you have to start again. So it's very common in conversation. A head start, a false start, and a flying start. And remember, off just means the beginning. Okay, old hand is very logical and very simple. The significance is a very experienced person. So if you are an old hand at mathematics, you're an old hand at English, the significance is you have managed, you have used English a lot, and your hand is very old because it's very experienced. Okay, so it's very common in every context. You are an old hand at football, you're an old hand at painting, you're very experienced. Okay, it's possible as well to say a dab hand, which is very difficult to understand, but a dab hand is very talented. So if you are a dab hand at painting, the significance is you are very talented or you have a lot of ability. Okay, again, old school is very understandable. I think it's maybe old fashioned. If this person is very old fashioned or very old school, they have traditions or they have discipline that's very typical in the past, but maybe not very typical today. So it's the same in sport. If you have the style of football or the style of sport, that's not very modern, it's very old fashioned. It's very typical to say old school, because of course discipline and techniques in school have changed. So it's a very typical expression to be old school, has the significance to be old fashioned. Okay, the next one is very typical as well. So on the ball, so again it's a metaphor from sport. So if you have possession of the ball, we say you are on the ball, you have control. Okay, but it's a metaphor to say you are very correct, you're very precise, and you're very accurate. So for example, in the morning I wake up at 8 o'clock and I do all my activity at 8 o'clock. So I complete all my activity in the morning. So I am on the ball, I am very active, I am very in control. So the significance is maybe in control, very productive, very precise, and very alert. There's a lot of synonyms to be on the ball. It's very common in English, and it means that you are very active and you're very alert and initiative. You use your initiative to be on the ball. Okay, we have another expression in relation to this: to keep, to maintain, to keep your eye on the ball is the significance to focus. Okay, excuse me. So to keep your eye on the ball is an instruction to maintain your concentration, because every day you need to concentrate in the morning, so you need to keep your eye on the ball, to be vigilant. Okay, so to keep your eye on the ball is typical, to keep your eye on the ball, and to be on the ball are a little different, but they're very good metaphors as well. And the opposite is to take your eye off the ball. So if you take your eye off the ball, maybe you lose your discipline, you lose your vigilance, and that's a typical expression as well, to take your eye off the ball. Okay, and then just 2 or 3 more. I think here we have a very good expression. So remember, on is the typical preposition for a surface. So the television is on the wall, the computer is on the table. But if you have chocolate on the brain, it's a metaphor that you're constantly thinking about chocolate. I have chocolate on the brain because I think about chocolate in the morning, I think about chocolate in the afternoon, I think about chocolate in the evening. I have chocolate on the brain. It's very possible, anything. You could say football on the brain, Instagram on the brain, because you constantly think about the topic. Okay, on the rocks, I think is it's a very good expression, very common, and it's related to the boat. Okay, so the boat is in the water and everything is perfect, and if the boat has hit the rocks, it's a disaster, it's a catastrophe. So to hit the rocks is a disaster, it's a catastrophe. And the opposite is on the rocks, which means it's in a dangerous situation. So if the relationship is on the rocks, it's very, very turbulent, it's very dangerous, there's a possibility to break, it's on the rocks. Okay, so it's a very, very good expression. To hit the rocks is typical as well. And the adjective is a rocky relationship, or a rocky situation, means unstable. Okay, so very, very typical and common vocabulary. A rocky relationship is very unstable. Typical with alcohol or a drink, you can have something on the rocks, which just means with the ice. Okay, so if you want the alcohol or the drink on the rocks, the significance is with the ice. Okay, I have an itchy nose. That's a famous expression as well. At the moment, I have an itchy nose. And this is an expression when you want to have an argument. People say, if you have an itchy nose, you will have an argument as well very soon. So be careful. Okay. On time is very logical, but there is a little difference between on time and in time. Okay. So if you are on time, you're very punctual. On time, because on 6 o'clock, on 6 o'clock, you're on time, you're very punctual. So it's the same significance with the preposition, but in time has a little different meaning. It means that you arrive maybe before. So if you arrive 10 minutes in time, that means if you arrive in time, that means you maybe arrive 10 minutes before. But if you arrive on time, that means you arrive exactly at the same hour. Okay, so there is a small difference between on time and in time. The next expression is very typical as well. Once in a blue moon means extremely rare. Okay, so Juventus, well, no, they always win the league, but Sampdoria win Serie A once in a blue moon, so very, very occasionally, almost never. So once in a blue moon means almost never, because normally the moon is white. You have a full moon, half moon, but normally it's white. But occasionally, very rarely, you have a blue moon. So that means very, very rare. So it's a very good expression, very common and very frequent in all conversations. And then finally, the typical expression is once upon a time is a very formal expression to start a story. If you want to tell a story, it's a very typical beginning. Once upon a time, and it means one day a long time ago. It's very formal, very old English. We do not use it all the time. It's only specifically used in relation to stories. Okay, and of course the typical start of a story is once upon a time. And that's very good vocabulary, I think, for today. And let me just see the question that we have here from the chat. So we won for sorry, because that's Matteo, and Matteo is a supporter of Juventus, and the example is we won, so it's the past irregular to win the championship for 9 years in a row, which is consecutively. So Sampdoria is the perfect example for the football. Okay, good. So that's just a very, very good class today. Introduction and also some analysis of the article for vocabulary and grammar, and also an analysis of some idioms. So I'm very happy with the contents today. And remember, today we have a webinar at 4 o'clock, so it's another class, and the topic will be sport. The topic will be football, but it will be very similar in the structure. We will analyse vocabulary, we will analyse an article, and maybe listening. We will practice a listening from a video, and it's also a possibility to practice some speaking as well. That's at 4 o'clock today in Dublin time. My accent as well, Dublin, and it will be on Zoom. There's a small fee of €2.90, and if you want to register, if you want to confirm your place, just contact me and I can give you the details. So that's today. Every day we have a webinar, and also remember, everything is free. I'm very, very happy to teach for free at the moment. It's a good opportunity for me, and hopefully it's beneficial and very useful for you. So if you're happy and if you think you are learning a lot and you're very, very happy, it's possible you can make a small donation, or to contribute a small donation of maybe €1 or €2 to me. This will be a great help, and it will allow me to continue working in this way. It's possible by Bizum, which is an application in Spain, and the number is here you need, or Revolut, or the bank details are at the bottom left as well if you want to make a direct transfer, or PayPal. This code will direct you to a screen for €1 or €2 if you want. It would be a great support and a great help for me. And that's it. And remember, social media, we have Instagram, and that's the name, Il Migliore Inglés, and Instagram, Twitter and YouTube are available as well. So today we are a little late, so probably we do not have too much time for speaking. I hope you don't mind. And the weather is very, very good here today as well. So hopefully you enjoyed the class, and hopefully it was beneficial for you. And I hope that you have been enjoying the classes for the last few weeks. Remember, tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so this is the reason for the green today. And again, we have the webinar today at 4 o'clock, so you're very welcome to join, and just contact me if you want to confirm your place. So thank you very much, have a great day, and hopefully talk to you soon. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Facebook page, or you can contact me. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.